Well, good afternoon and welcome to the first in our series of Q&A sessions. Today's topic is the ATOM Online Assessment System, specifically focusing questions on installing the ATOM Lockdown browser. My name is Dwayne Dixon. I'm the moderator and I'm the program manager for the Maine Science assessment at New Meridian. We also have Nancy Godfrey with us, the assessment coordinator from the Maine Department of Education. And our ATOM expert responding to the majority of your questions is Bob Wolf, the Senior Product Management Analyst at MZD. A couple of housekeeping tasks before we get started. We do ask that you submit your questions via the chat. We will be monitoring that throughout the session so that we can pick up your questions quickly and easily without having to worry about trying to speak over each other and figure out whose turn it is to speak. As well, we do ask that you keep your microphone muted unless we ask you to unmute it so that you can ask us specific questions or for clarification. And just a reminder that all of our Q&A sessions are recorded. And so if you have to drop off early, or if you have a colleague who isn't able to make it, you can direct them to watch those and listen to them. So on the screen right now is the contact information for the support desk, as well as Nancy. And as you notice here, the accommodations, irregularities, or student-related questions would be focused to Nancy. And I figured, do you want to say something about that, Nancy?
No, I'll take questions if they come up as we go along, but.
Okay, sounds good. And pretty much all other questions would be focused to the support desk, such as lockdown browser installation issues, lockdown browser's not working, login issues, you can't find a student, so forth. There's our toll-free number, as well as the web address. And just a reminder that Bob is going to be going over this in detail here in a few minutes, but I just wanted to put it out there before we got started that there are 3 areas in our support desk. So it's not just for a place to go submit tickets. We have videos and tutorials section. We have resource document download section, as well as we have an FAQ. And that FAQ grows daily as we get questions from you and respond to those questions appropriately. At this moment, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to our presenters and we start asking our questions. So Bob, I'll be handing this now. Give me a moment here to flip the screen here so you can see what the help desk looks like.
Right on. Yeah, thanks, Dwayne. And so I'll talk a little bit about what you're seeing on the screen right now, and I'm going to turn off my video. You don't need to see my face along with this now. So thanks for joining us today. We know that the topic here is to talk about the lockdown browser, but I want to start out each of these sessions by reminding everybody of the incredible resources that are out there. And so what we're seeing right now are, again, the toll-free number for getting to the help desk, as well as the Zendesk website. And you see a screenshot there of that. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen as well. And hopefully you are seeing the Zendesk site. Yes, Dwayne?
Yes, had to get myself off mute.
Well, that's good. That's better than my email. So, so this is the Zendesk site. And those of you who've been in here, hopefully it's been useful. I just wanted to point out a couple of things before we talk about lockdown. First of all is a search function. So for example, if I'm interested in learning more about lockdown, I can typed in lock, and it gives me all of these different topics about the lockdown browser, how to start it up, all that kind of stuff. Hopefully you've read those already. If you haven't, that resource is there for you. I also want to point out that there is a link here for request help. This allows you to create a ticket from Zendesk, and it kind of helps you ask or put in the correct information for us. So it's really easy for us to have a ticket created to help you work through your issues. If you need a question answered immediately, there's two options down here in the bottom right-hand corner. During our help desk hours, you can click on that and you can call directly from here if you're connected to your computer, or you can dial the number. You can live chat. And so those are kind of the two options here. Open a ticket, call, and there's the number, which I'm not going to dial at this point, or you can live chat. So take advantage of those resources. You'll also see on this page a couple of other items, along with kind of bucketed topics like videos and tutorials, webinars, which lists out the videos that we have available, and FAQs, which is a lot of articles like Dwayne was saying. We also try to identify articles that are maybe more critical during a period of time. So for example, right now we're talking about the Q&A for Lockdown Browser. I put in an article that explains what those are and when they are, along with the registration links. So take advantage of that. We really appreciate you using this and creating your tickets so there's no confusion out there. Okay, so help desk, talked enough about that. Let's talk specifically about the Lockdown Browser, and we're not going to cover how to do everything. That's covered in all of the trainings, but I did want to reiterate where the Lockdown Browser can be found if you need to download it again. And that's at adamexam.com. And there's a link here for download Lockdown Browsers. And that will give you these 3 versions of downloads. And we'll talk, I'm sure that this will come up. This is for the Mac download. I prefer the Windows install of the MSI for a Windows machine, although the EXE can be used as well. If you're using Chromebooks, those need to be managed, and there's specific instructions in the Lockdown user guide that explain how to go get the app for the Chromebook to get the managed Lockdown browser installed. There was a great question that started this whole thing off, and I'm going to go ahead and ask that question first. The question was, I'm hoping the answer for Chromebook kiosk users is it's the same Chrome app link, and if you have all the settings from last year still in place, you're all good to go. It is the same app from last year. So if you have all of that set up, and especially if it's already pushed out to your Chromebooks, you are all good to go. So thanks for that question. Are there any other questions that we can go ahead and start answering then?
Yeah, Bob, we had a question come in. Has the browser been tested with Mac OS Monterey 12 version?
So yeah, I think that's Monterey, and Mike can probably answer that question more specifically, but yes, I believe that it has been tested. There are, and he might post in something about that. Yeah, I think we're testing all.
Can you hear me, Bob?
Yeah, Mike, thanks.
Yeah, we have done testing on Monterey. Should be good, but if you find something, please let us know.
Thanks, Mike.
We had another question come in about using an iPad, or is it okay to use that? Will it work okay on an iPad?
Yeah, so there is installation instructions for using an iPad, and I think that's generally a decision at the state as to whether or not we're using iPads for testing. Nancy, do you have a recommendation on that?
It's not a state policy what devices schools and districts have. So we have the installation instructions for all devices that we're aware of. Yes, so iPads are allowed, yes.
Thank you for that question. Anything else come in, Katie?
Yeah, we had another one come in, and this user said, I just tested the Atom browser on the Monterey 12.0.1. Seems to be fine. The version of Atom that I have pushed out to our Macs is 1.15.14. Is this version sufficient?
And I'll defer to Mike, but there's, we go back pretty far for allowing on the OS system for the Macs. The number specifically, Mike, does that sound fine?
Hey, Bob, what do we have posted? What versions? If you hover over the Mac installing, I need to double check, but I think 1.15.
I'll pull it up out of here.
Yeah. And I think the question is regarding the version of Atom.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yes, it is.
the version of Atom, I don't think that has anything to do with the lockdown browser. So your Atom version updates when you log in. Isn't that correct?
So there is a version of the so there's a version of Atom, but there's also a version of the lockdown browser. Latest is 1.5.15. It shows up in the title bar what version you have. Give me 1 second, Sean, on 14. I'll see if that was a critical update. I don't think it was. I think you're fine with 1.15.14, but let me double check. I'll come back on that one.
Okay,
follow
and
up
Sean
on-
did confirm that the practice test seemed to work fine.
Yeah, I mean, there's very little difference between those versions. Of course, best practice is to download the most recent version of the lockdown browser to make sure that you are not, to make sure that you have the best version possible for student testing.
Yeah. We had another question come in for iPad, and they just wanted to confirm for iPad testing, is the correct app the Atom Secure Browser app?
Yeah, from the App Store, yes. That's, of course I can't show it, but I can pull it up. Give me 1 second. I will make sure that sounds right.
All right. And we had another question come in along the same lines. I think it's been addressed, Bob, but they were asking if last year's version of the Atom browser that they downloaded will work correctly. And I believe the answer there is that best practice is to download the newest version just to ensure full functionality without any errors, correct?
That is correct. Yeah, we prefer and strongly suggest that you use the new version of the lockdown browser.
Okay, and they wanted to clarify that it wasn't the Atom version, but the configuration profile.
And so then are we talking about like the Jamf settings for Mac or something?
Yes.
With Chromebook?
Yeah, the Jamf setting for Mac.
So I believe that you will need to adjust your Jamf settings from last year, since that's looking at the older version of the lockdown browser. And so our suggestion would be to update your Jamf settings for Mac so that when you push out the new version of the lockdown browser.
And then we had a question about the practice code numbers, where they can locate maybe those practice test codes.
Sure. So this is a great use of the help desk site. And if you go to the help desk and type in practice, there's an article in here called Practice Assessment and Tutorial Administration Manuals. And this has all of those practice codes for you to use.
And Bob, is there an article that might help a Mac user address the JAMF settings you were discussing?
So we have an article from last year. I don't even know how to spell this. JAM. Let's see if that's right. So there's an article called "Is there a package and config file for JAMF distribution in the lockdown browser?" And we put this information out last year. So I would have to, I didn't write these. So these were written for us by somebody else in your organization who had put these together. I think that these need to be updated for this year. These were posted on the ACTEM listserv. I'm not familiar with how they are actually configured, but I think that we should probably get those updated and post it back out again.
This is Nancy. I believe, is Andy Wallace on the call? Because I'm not sure whether this JAMP article is current for this year.
Yeah, I'm on the call. I could do have that updated to reflect the most recent. What Bob was getting at, what's really important is if you already have devices that have the app, it's probably going to work just fine. But if you're adding on to devices that had been wiped or new devices, it's going to try to reference a download file in a location that doesn't exist on the internet, and so it won't work. So I'll reach out to a couple of colleagues and we will revise those JAMP level instructions.
Thanks,
Andy.
Andy.
Yeah, that'll be awesome. To follow up on the last question, oh, and thank you for joining us from your conference, Andy. That's awesome. If you're doing this on a iPad, the name of the application is Atom Secure Browser. Atom is all uppercase, not that that matters, but you will see the icon associated with Atom. It's very similar to what you're seeing in the middle here. Okay.
And Bob, would you be able to demo how to access the practice test? We had a question, a user's struggling to access it.
Sure. So let's go back to the article on practice tests, or even there's another one on the student tutorials, but I'll go into this practice test. And all of these practice tests have a code. So I'm going to go ahead and grab just a practice test code. This is for 5th grade. And I will go to atomexam.com and go to student login. Now, students will access this a little different, but this is a way to test your device. You can go to student login and paste in the test code. Start. And that loads that up. If you are testing with the lockdown browser, which is certainly something that is worth doing, I can't show you that because it will shut everything else on my machine down, but I can show you where I would go. So on an iPad, you would find the application for the lockdown browser. You would click onto that icon. At that point, the system is going to run some checks on your machine, and it will test to make sure, so I'd be in a lot of trouble. It would make sure that you only have that application open. It would make sure that you have enough power on your laptop. It would check to make sure that you only have one monitor running. And after it runs those tests, it will open up, and basically it just takes you to the atomexam.com page, but in a lockdown browser format. So it would take you right to this page where you enter in your test code. If you continue to have trouble accessing that, go ahead and give us a call at the help desk, and I'm happy to jump on a call with you and as long as you're not in a lockdown browser, I can help you walk through that just to make sure that you are feeling very comfortable with your testing.
Just for clarification, Bob, the lockdown browser is not required for students to take the practice test, though, correct?
That's absolutely right.
Okay.
If they wanted to make sure that the installed lockdown browser works, they can still use these test codes within the lockdown browser.
And Bob, could you confirm which version of Atom, of the lockdown browser, should be used on Chromebooks? What is the number?
It's the Chromebook version is the same version as last year, but let's go. I can go ahead and grab the guide. And sorry if I come down here. This, I mean, I could read this to you. This is the code that you're looking for within the Chrome store as an administrator. But if you have, but your Chromebook lockdown browser version is the same as last year. Mac and Windows versions updated. And in this guide, sorry, I knew that this was out here. This has those iOS steps for your iPad. Shows you exactly what the browser or what the application looks like if you're loading it.
And that catches us up on the chat.
Right on. What other questions do you have? I know we have a kind of a list of questions that we answered last year that we can certainly ask a few of those questions. But I'm glad to see that we've answered the questions that were active on chat.
Bob, we could go with this question. Says, see, where is it? Does their school have to use the lockdown browser to administer the assessment?
It's a great question, and Nancy, I'm sure, is nodding her head up and down. Yeah, lockdown browser is required to take this test.
Yes, the same as last spring. The science is not able to be given remotely. There is no web-based browser. It must be on the lockdown browser, and students must be on managed devices in the school setting.
We had another question come in. It is about rostering, but it says, does rostering come directly from Neo/Synergy? Nothing we have to upload manually ourselves?
So it's yes. I mean, the answer to that question is yes. The students are all coming from the state, and those are being pushed directly into Atom. You do have some steps that, or the schools have steps that they need to take once the students are in the system. That is creating classes and putting the students into the correct classes. Once an SAC does that, we handle the rest of it by basically using those class designations to put students into the correct tests or administrations within Atom. Did that answer the question?
Yes, it did. Thank you. So
Right.
another question came in. Do the devices have to be managed? Can students install the lockdown browser on their own MacBook?
That gets a little tricky. So it depends on your device. Chromebooks have to be managed devices, and that's a requirement based on Google and the kind of mechanics of it being a Chromebook. If your students are bringing in their own Macs or their own Windows devices, yeah, they can install the lockdown browser on their own machines.
So I'm sorry, to recap, only Chromebooks have to be managed. Is that correct?
That's correct, Nancy.
Okay, thanks.
The question, Bob, what speed, and I believe it's network speed, do you recommend for Adam to work without issues or delay?
Oh boy. I am going to try to look that one up because I believe that this was one that we put into this guide. So let's see if I can find anything about the network speed.
I can jump in and say
Yeah.
that, if you're successfully running an assessment like NWEA, you're going to have no trouble with this one. The type of connections back and forth are less rigorous than would be the NWA. So if you can pull that off, you're going to be just fine for this assessment.
Yeah,
I don't have a megabytes per second answer.
Yeah, and I agree. And so one of the things that we do with this, with the test, is you're not constantly connected. There's data or information that's being sent back and forth. So we're a little bit even forgiving as if there happens to be some kind of spotty network connection. But you really you don't need to have a super fast machine in order to make this work. I'll see if I can find something more more specific, because I know that there's something out here where we talked about that. So here we go. Let's see what this is. Hardware. Cumulative CPU speeds greater than 233, total RAM available greater than 256. iPads must be second generation or later. 50 meg of free hard drive. And that's, I think, to get, that's what we recommend.
I think it's right there above. The one bullet says Adam's a lightweight browser application that's not bandwidth intensive, no required bandwidth minimums. However, 5 to 10 megabits per second per student is a general rule of thumb for online.
Thanks, Dwayne. I was looking for that line too.
Thank you. We actually had another question about rostering. Does it come directly from Neo or Synergy?
It comes directly from a file that I get. Nancy, I'm going to see if you can answer that for me.
Neo and Synergy are kind of one and the same. They speak to each other. So the enrollment of all the students at your district and or school come directly out of the Neo Synergy system, gets sent to MZD and New Meridian, and it is uploaded into the system. So all the students are pre-uploaded into your platform, into your Adam roster by grade level. All your fifth graders together, all your eighth graders together, all your high school students together. And you can separate them by classes, how you're creating them. Just as an FYI, we're happy to be, as we have time, to answer questions about rostering, but the session that is going over all of the details of the rostering is next Monday, the 11th, at the same time, 3 o'clock.
Yeah, and I'll add one thing to that, Nancy, is that the rostering is not a one-time deal. it's something that we're continuing to update as changes happen. That
Yep.
is dynamic back into Atom every night.
Oh, that's correct. Yes, I forgot that aspect of it. We know that students move from school to school, district to district, and the DOE sends a daily change file of enrollment of all students who move from one to another, and happens overnight every night. So changes in enrollment should be reflected within 24 hours into your platform roster.
And we had another question come in about the lockdown browser. So on a Mac, do I need to uninstall last year's version before pushing out this year's new lockdown browser?
I was going to try this again, but I know that I went out and simply downloaded the new DMG file, and Mac just takes care of it for me. So I don't believe you need to uninstall anything. You just need to tell your Mac to grab the new file. Mike, does that sound right?
Yeah, so there's not an uninstall. You can just, with this, the same process for installing fresh can be used if you've already got an existing install. So.
Cool. No need to uninstall. Just go through the process of putting the new one on, which takes all of, 20 seconds or something. It's very fast.
And there was a probably a decent change from on our end from 1.5.14 to 15. So I'm gonna just reiterate, probably be a good idea to get a fresh install if you haven't already done so.
Thanks, Mike. And I guess I could have said this at the very beginning. There's very little difference. In fact, there's no difference in your process from last year to this year. The only difference is we have made an update to the code of the lockdown browser. So the things that we're asking you to do, which machines are available, that is all the same. So if you were comfortable last year, you should be comfortable this year. So I don't sure if there's any more that we're seeing come in. I don't mean to hold you here longer than you need to be. The support desk again is open to answer any questions that you might have. As you start to do this, if you have questions, please make sure you contact us. Don't wait around. We're happy to get back to you as soon as we see the tickets come through, or if you call us to answer those as quickly as we can. Katie, Dwayne, do you have anything else you want to ask, or should we let these folks get back to it?
I think the only thing is just a reminder, as Nancy mentioned, we have 2 more Q&A sessions coming up. One on April the 11th, which is covering rostering and accessibility. And then the last one will be on April the 25th, which will cover proctoring and accessibility. Again, for any additional questions, we'll be here same time. And those links are on the DOE website where you registered for this Q&A session. And we hope you all can attend those.
Oh, one more thing. Sorry, Katie. Not that I always want to be the last one that talks.
No,
but,
you're fine.
But we also recorded this session. So if you feel like you missed anything, we'll be reposting these out. And I'm not sure if we decided exactly where they're going, but I'm guessing that we'll end up on the Zendesk site and probably on the state site. I'm not sure. Nancy, do you know for sure?
Probably in both places, yes. Yes, the DOE website has a YouTube channel, and we will send the appropriate package of this recording to MTD and New Meridian so they can post it on Zendesk as well.
Awesome. Thanks, Nancy. Now I don't have anything else.
Okay.
Let's see here, just a small reminder
Yep.
that the help desk call-in hours this week and
Oh, you might have ended up on mute.
Dwayne,
Oh, I think you went on mute, Dwayne.
there we go. My computer decided to mute me. I guess my computer thought I was talking enough. On just going over the hours for calling in, we can of course take a web ticket at any point, but as far as getting an actual direct answer from a phone call, starting today and through next week, the 15th, the hours are 7:30 to 4 Eastern. And then starting on the 18th, it becomes 6:30 to 6 Eastern, all the way until the 10th. And then the week after the admin, which I had to get it, it's the 13th of the 17th, goes back to the 7:30 to 4 Eastern. It just happens if you have any questions after the admin.
okay, if there's no other questions, I guess we will be giving back the gift of time.